recording.
Everyone, sure.
All right, welcome everybody. I am so very excited to have Natalie here. We're going to be talking a bit about breastfeeding and how we as healthcare providers, as nurses, can help support these mamas through this journey. My name is Ashley Frost and I am a third semester student here at Sac State. And I am so excited to be joined by Natalie Johnson, who is a Sac State alum.
Woohoo!
She is a registered nurse. She is also an IBCLC, so that is an International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. And she is going to be talking to us today about breastfeeding and all of the wonderful things that come with that. So Natalie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sac State. Gosh, I played volleyball at Sac State many years ago. My husband played baseball there. We fell in love. We now have 4 kids. Sac State holds really fond memories for me. Loved my education there. I actually got my degree in child development at Sac State and dance, and then went back to become a nurse. Then I got my second degree in nursing and always knew I wanted to be in labor and delivery. So that's where I headed. And then I became a lactation consultant. And personally, I have actually been super passionate about breastfeeding since I was in high school. Now, my mother, we're going to be talking a little bit about this later, but the Baby Friendly initiative, my mother was an integral part of getting our hospitals in Southern California baby friendly. She wrote a grant, $1 million were granted to her to help hospitals become baby friendly. And so from my high school time, she took me along on all these conferences and to all of these amazing things that were breastfeeding related. And I thought, like, this is so cool. In Sac State, you know, I'm there, I'm my college, I got my college dorm rooms and everything. Oh, I had pictures of breastfeeding women up on the walls. Like, I was passionate. I worked for the State Department of WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, in their breastfeeding promotion unit as one of my jobs while I was in college at Sac State. And I have just loved breastfeeding. And then I had my own babies and I got to actually breastfeed myself. And it was like the best. My daughter, my oldest, I have 4 kiddos. My oldest will turn 10 in like 2 weeks, and I can't even believe it. She's almost 10. I have a 7.5-year-old son, a little boy who just turned 4, and my baby, who you will probably see at some point during this, is 5 months old today. So she will come in and I'm sure want to nurse at some point. Even though I just nursed her, we nurse really frequently. I have actually personally breastfed my 3 older children until they turned 4 years old. Cringe moment.
Same, girl, same.
Right. So you might be thinking that's crazy, but we're going to talk about like why a little bit, and just I hope by the end of this, you'll have this perspective of like, oh, those are fun things I didn't know about breastfeeding. Oh, she didn't seem so crazy for nursing her child till he turned 4. Breastfeeding is such a cool and very intricate part of my life. I run breastfeeding support groups out of my home. I ran them at our local hospital. I was teaching breastfeeding classes. I do consulting, and I just love helping women with breastfeeding. Part of what I love so much about that is that it is not just about like this getting a baby food. Like breast milk and breastfeeding is about so much more than getting a baby food. And I think that is just, it's amazing. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about this topic that I'm so passionate about. Are we going to be able to cover all the things I want to cover in this short amount of time? No, we are not. I'm going to try to share some fun stuff with you. My big goals for by the end of this presentation is, one, that you have just a better, well-rounded understanding of breastfeeding and why it is so important for us to support a woman who is breastfeeding. I don't care if it's postpartum and she just pushed the baby out, or if she's walking into the ER with her 4-year-old who just broke his arm and she's nursing her 2-year-old. Like you're going to come in contact, no matter where you end up working as a nurse, with women who are lactating, who have a breastfeeding relationship. Maybe it's going to be with a 3-year-old child, maybe it's with a 1-month-old, but I want you as a nurse to have a little bit of perspective about how important and special that relationship is, so that you can care for her in a way that will support that relationship and not roll your eyes and go like, oh my gosh, you're asking for a pump, but your kid's 2 years old. Why are you still breastfeeding them? Like, no, 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 you're here in the ER and you've left your 2-year-old who's nursing at home. I will absolutely get you a pump. I understand how this is important. So I really hope that by the end of this, you have a good understanding of like why this is such an important thing. Not that you need to know how to help women even, or not that you need to know all the ins and outs of breastfeeding, but just a like healthy respect for that relationship and why it might be so important for the women who are breastfeeding their babies. And I also really hope that by the end of this, you will have a little bit of motivation to seek out the lactation services at the hospital that you end up working at. So like if you end up with a job in a couple of years from now, even if it's not in OB or in the NICU or in labor and delivery, that you would say, you know, I would love to know who we refer to when we have lactation problems, because just like you're going to refer to a cardiologist when you have heart problems, you're going to refer to a nephrologist if you've got kidney issues, you're going to refer to lactation if there's a feeding problem or a feeding question. And so just like you would know who those specialists are in any other area, I want you to know who that person is at your hospital when you someday have a job, so that at least you can say, oh, I know who to connect you with. I know that person that's going to be able to help answer all of the questions, because you're not going to be a lactation consultant at the end of this presentation, although I wish you all were. You're not. But I hope that you're passionate as I am about breastfeeding. So that's, yeah, a little bit about me. In the chat is where I would really love for you guys to engage a little bit, so I don't feel like I'm sitting here just talking to Ashley. Her and I have known each other many years. I actually knew her husband long before they were married. And so her and I have a wonderful connection, and we talk breastfeeding all the time. But I really want to feel like I'm engaging a little bit with the rest of you as well. So if you are willing, I appreciate the one person, Christine, who has your camera on so I can see your smiling face. I appreciate that. And I would love engagement, like I said, in the chat. So we're going to have a few times here where I ask you to engage in the chat, and then I'm going to have Ashley randomly pull some names to get a little Starbucks gift card from me to incentivize you to participate and engage with me just a little bit today. Do you want to say anything before I kind of jump in, Ashley?
Oh gosh, you know, I was going to just say that we have so much in common. So I second a lot of what she said. I have always been passionate about breastfeeding. I too have 3 babies, and I have extended breastfeeding all of them. I breastfed through pregnancies and tandem breastfed and breastfed babies till they were 4. I just did some calculations. I have an abundant supply. So I was able to be a donor to both hospitals and then directly to other mamas in need. And so I have been blessed to be, you know, able to do that. I did some calculations. In my 10 years of lactating, I have produced approximately 980 gallons.
Woo, that's amazing.
A lot of milk. So I don't know if I'm going to get my award trophy in the mail or not, but that feels
it's on its
worthy.
way. It's on its way.
So breastfeeding is something that I'm super, super passionate about, and supporting women through this journey. I think that it's amazing opportunity to help empower women in their bodies and to really help to spread this knowledge around. A lot of us are going to be going into healthcare, like you said, and they're going to be working with people who have some sort of a breastfeeding relationship. And I think that this knowledge is going to be beneficial going forward. So
yeah, I'm so excited.
Yay.
All right, everybody, we're going to just first quiz question for you to participate in. Ashley will draw a winner. First question. This is a true or false question. True or false? The size of your breasts will dictate your ability to make milk, or the amount of milk that you can make. Does size matter?
False.
All right, I love it.
Thanks, Tigran.
False is right. This is a padded bra, but I have smaller than A cup boobs, and I've fed 1 or 2 babies for the last 10 years straight. False. Okay, you can pick one of those people who said false, Ashley, and we'll get an email. Pick someone, email, we'll get an email from them, and I'll send you a question.
I'm going to randomize the names, so
there you go. Okay,
it won't be playing favorites.
Okay, next question. We'll do one more question. Has anyone heard this? And do you think it's true or false? If you are doing it right, breastfeeding will not hurt, especially at the beginning. If you're doing it right, it's not going to hurt. Is that true or false? We've got a little diversity in answers here. Some truths, some falses.
False.
I like it. False. So I would say false. Now, does it mean it hurts forever and ever? No, I'm not crazy enough to be breastfeeding for the last 10 years straight if it hurt every single time I latched my baby. No. Does it get better? Yes. Are you going to be pain-free? Yes. But at the very, very, very beginning, especially with some of you who are seeing new moms in OB world, there is a chance it's not going to feel great. And here's the best analogy that I want you to hold on to this analogy. So if you're ever talking to a mom who says, oh, my breasts are kind of hurting a little bit, this is what you want to think of. This is the analogy. Brand new pair of shoes. If you're a woman, maybe it's a high-heeled pair of shoes. Cute, perfect, cute shoes. And they are like the perfect size. And you buy your brand new pair of shoes and you go dancing all night. You go out to dinner and you go dancing. By the way, I taught ballroom for about 8 years. Country dancing is my life. I've been country dancing since I was like 12. So that's another connection Ashley and I have. So if you come home, there's a chance you're going to have a blister. There's a chance your feet aren't going to feel great the first time you wear your brand new shoes. Does it mean that they're the wrong size? No. Does it mean you should never wear those shoes again? No. Does it mean that they're not going to be your favorite pair of shoes in a few times? No, you just might need to wear them in. You might need to build a few calluses. You might need to get your feet used to that shoe. And that's very much like the breastfeeding relationship. You might have discomfort at the beginning. And if a woman thinks, I'm not supposed to experience any pain at all, she can easily jump to something must be horribly wrong because I'm experiencing some discomfort and I'm just going to give up. So we want to make sure that we understand that there might be some discomfort. Now, pain all the time? No. Cringing every single time you latch your baby, nipples that are cut and bleeding? No, we need to work on a latch. But sore, discomfort, maybe a little bit of a crack or a little bit of a blister for a day or two can be super normal. So we want to encourage women that just like that new pair of shoes might not feel perfect the first day, the first time you have a baby whose entire life depends on sucking on your boob, they're really good at it. It might not feel great. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to jump into my presentation. I'm going to share my screen. If you have questions that come up during this, I want you to put them in the chat. We will have time for questions later also, but I want to put them in there. And then Ashley, if you see something that pops up that's like, oh, that's relevant and I should answer that right away, will you interrupt me, please? And we will answer that question. Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to go to this. Can you all see it?
Yep.
Okay. So a few objectives. We're going to talk about the history of nursing a little bit. We're going to get some context. We're going to talk about some benefits of breastfeeding. We're going to overview some of the neurological stuff that's happening. And we're going to talk about how you guys can be really helpful. And we're going to talk about baby friendly. Oh, there's me and my two tandem feeding for the last time, my 4-year-old and my little one. History of breastfeeding. Okay, so breastfeeding was the original design. Surprise, surprise, Jesus was breastfed. Like the breastfeeding was the design. We did not have a way of feeding babies except breastfeeding back in the day. And when we were living communally, we would have fed each other's babies, right? If a mother died in childbirth, or if she wasn't, didn't have a supply that was substantial for her baby, we would have shared that responsibility and babies were breastfed. So that was how we fed babies. Wet nursing became a very popular thing as the Renaissance period rolled around and royalty, there became a little bit of diversity there where royalty would often not nurse their own babies. They would have wet nurses that would come in and nurse. But listen to this interesting thing. It's believed that those royal babies, a lot of times the genetic pool wasn't huge for royalty, right? A lot of royal families would have been marrying each other, keeping power, maybe alliances, but there wasn't a lot of genetic diversity necessarily for some of the royalty. But those royal children were nursed by wet nurses who were often very engaged in the community, would have been exposed to all of the diseases and the things of the lower class people in the community, and actually provided then all of that amazing immunity immunity and helped those royal kids be really strong and actually healthier potentially than they would have been had their mamas, who were very separated from everything, had they nursed them. So I think that's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. We got some like really great immune support for those royal kids because of wet nursing. So as we move along here, we get to like the 17th century, and research starts to say that there are benefits for women nursing their own children, which we know is true. But then they started blaming wet nurses for decreases in infant health. Now, this is before like germ theory and understanding all of that. So wet nurses started to get blamed for some of infants' issues, which was kind of interesting. So people started looking at animal milk substitutes for the first time. It's not progressing for me. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So then the early 19th century, we have issues with trying to get babies milk, but we are not necessarily understanding how to give it in a clean device. So we have dirty feeding devices, and listen to this statistic, led to the death of 1/3 of all artificially fed infants died during the first year of their life because of this. 1/3 of babies that were given other kinds of milk were dying because of dirty feeding devices. So we then have a little bit back and forth about human milk still being the best source of nutrition. We start to understand that again, mother's milk is really ideal, but then scientists started to figure, can we formulate, it's why we call it formula. It's a formulation to try to match human milk. Can we create something to match human milk? In 1865, chemist Justus von Liebig developed and patented the very first infant formula. Now look at these ingredients, you guys. Cow's milk. Does anyone know how many stomachs a cow has? In the chat, anyone know how many stomachs a cow has? Anyone know?
4.
4 stomachs. They digest and regurgitate their food. And their milk from mommy cows, for baby cows, has huge protein with the intention of it being digested multiple times. So we're taking that and putting it into humans who have 1 stomach and don't actually do well with that large of a protein. That along with, oops, I went backwards. Where am I? There we go. With wheat, malt flour, and potassium bicarbonate, and it was considered the perfect food, guys. We made the perfect food for babies. Wow, right? So then we have the use of artificial formulas associated with many summertime deaths due to spoiling of milk left in bottles. We're still not understanding, this is a long time ago, that we need to keep milk fresh and cold, and this lots of babies not doing well because of this. So we finally have a public acceptance of germ theory between 1890 and 1910. We have this emphasis placed on clean, like let's get babies milk in clean things. Yay! By 1912, rubber nipples were developed. They were easy to clean, and many homes were able to store milk in like an icebox situation. So then we start to get a safer alternative feeding situation. By the 40s and 50s, physicians and consumers regarded formula as the well-known, popular, safe substitute for breast milk. And consequently, breastfeeding started to experience a steady decline until the 70s. What else happened between that time? 40s and 50s. Anyone? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute and answer. What else happened during that time?
Increase in manufacturing in World War II and increase of knowledge of chemicals.
Yes. Okay. So we all of a sudden have world wars happening. Women were into the workforce more, ability to say, oh, you don't have to be home with your baby. We created this thing in our factory that can feed your child so that you can go to work, right? We got this shift that happened and it became this popular thing. I mean, these are advertisements from that time. Oyster milk, looking well, sleeping well, gaining well. These are signs that your baby's getting a good start, right? Now it starts to become the norm, kind of aggressively advertised as the norm during that time. Breastfeeding was considered old-fashioned and unsanitary. How ironic is that? we now know breast milk literally has live antibodies in it that can kill things, but it was considered unsanitary at that point in time. So then the La Leche League was founded, and they established this like, no, we are going to support breastfeeding. And the La Leche League is still something that is active today. Women taking hold of this and saying, we're going to support this natural thing that women have been doing for a long time and support breastfeeding. This is this beautiful quote, but I'm moving on. Okay, so then we get some resurgence of women claiming breastfeeding a little bit more, and we get even more aggressive marketing from formula companies. So this then is a global decline. We start to see a global decline in breastfeeding. Fortunately and unfortunately, sometimes other countries follow our lead here in the US, and we've got this like progressive, we're going to feed our babies formula, and we've created these amazing things, and we actually led to a global decline in breastfeeding, which is just crazy. And then again, we have more effort to promote breastfeeding. So over the last 30 years, we've had this little steady increase in the percent of women who have chosen breastfeeding and babies that are breastfeeding in the US, which is really, really exciting. In 1988, the formula industry began advertising directly to the public. And this is really an interesting thing to understand. So prior to this point, it was not acceptable, and formula companies did not aggressively market directly to women. Okay, they were marketing through their doctor's offices, through more like passive, but not aggressively to women. Now, for those of you, if there's any of you who've had children, will you tell me in the chat, have you had any marketing of formula products to you during your pregnancy or early postpartum? That might include getting free samples in the mail, having flyers given to you, emails sent to you, maybe handed formula from your doctor's office or your pediatrician. Yes, at the doctor's office, started during your pregnancy. Yes, okay. Like this happened with me, and I got so personally offended, as if they knew I was a lactation consultant. How? What? You're gonna send me formula? But I bought a nursing bra from Motherhood Maternity. They asked for my email so that I could get my credits or whatever in their rewards program. I specifically asked, do you sell this email? Because I don't really want my email out and about. No, we don't. Guess what I started getting emails for immediately? Formula. Just in case breastfeeding doesn't work out, our formula is the best. We know breastfeeding is the best, but just in case, at my door, free formula. This is aggressive marketing, and they have gotten really sneaky about it. You can see here, our breastfeeding support kit. Our breastfeeding support kit. We're going to sabotage your breastfeeding relationship with this breastfeeding support kit. Now, I need to take a step back. If you're on here and you have children and you formula fed them, please know that I'm not trying to say, you shouldn't have formula fed your babies. We're talking about globally what's going on. And I know that everyone needs to make a decision that's right for them. And I'm supportive of babies being fed. So please know that if any of this rubs you the wrong way, that is definitely not my intention. But I do want to talk about how interesting this is and how aggressive this is, because it's really caused our culture and women in our culture to struggle big time. So we see things like this, comparing side to side. We've learned from the best, so we could give you and your baby the best. Wow. This is crazy. So in 1981, the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes was developed by the World Health Organization. So the World Health Organization said, okay, guys, we need a code of how breast milk substitutes can and cannot be marketed, because we can't have an entire world who stops breastfeeding their babies because of really good marketing and really aggressive marketing. So we're going to make a code, and we're going to expect countries to follow this code of how you can and cannot market formula. Does anyone want to guess one of the 4 major countries in our world that ignores the code and la 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 la? Us. literally ignore the code. Okay. Every other developed country, except for there's 4 of us, abide by this code. They do not allow formula companies to aggressively market. They do not allow formula companies to contact women directly via email or text message or send them things. They protect the women in the breastfeeding relationship, and the US says la 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 la, and we aggressively allow women to be bombarded with marketing that destroys breastfeeding relationships. And we wonder why we have such low breastfeeding rates. We don't wonder. Formula companies and pharmaceutical companies are very powerful here. There's a lot of money in here. And so they just ignore the World Health Organization's recommendations. Let's see, 1999, the US made a law that specifically said a woman can breastfeed her child in any location in the federal building or other federal property if the woman and her child are otherwise authorized to be present in that location. It took until 1999 for us to have a law that protected women breastfeeding out and about. Guys, we were alive. I was alive during that time. You might not have been alive. I was alive during that time. And in June of 2006, 36 states had enacted legislation to protect breastfeeding women. Not even all 50 states have legislature to protect breastfeeding women. So we still hear these stories of a woman being asked to cover or asked to not do that here, or here's a bathroom stall to breastfeed your baby in. And it is infuriating to me because we have federal law that protects women breastfeeding anywhere they can otherwise be, not covered. You do not have to be covered. You can be uncovered, feeding your child, and all of the laws about nudity and like exposing your nipple, like that is covered here. So like if you're nursing and a baby pops off and your nipple is exposed for a moment as you're adjusting your shirt or getting the baby back on, that you're not breaking the law, you are protected as a breastfeeding woman, which is really amazing. But it took until 1999 for us to get a law that protects breastfeeding women here. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of breastfeeding. Like why is this even a thing we should care about? Like why is this even important for us to know that breastfeeding women are protected, or to be supportive and allies with breastfeeding women? I'm going to stop sharing this for a second so I can see more of you in the chat. So let's talk first babies. In the chat, because I feel like this is the one where we're going to have the most answers. What are some of the benefits for a baby to breast milk, breastfeeding? Why should babies be breastfed? Immune system, antibodies, bonding with mom, specialized milk, immunity, antibodies, strong immune system, especially in today's day and age with all this crazy pandemic stuff. Immunity is huge. Yes. Bonding, great weight gain, antibodies, nutrition.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh my gosh, my watch is talking to me. Sorry.
That's hilarious.
Not talking to you, watch. All right, anything else besides bonding, nutrition, antibodies? Has anyone ever heard that breastfed babies have exponentially fewer ear infections than formula-fed babies? It's a big one. Fights infection in general. Risks of obesity are dramatically decreased in babies that are breastfed. Why do you think that is? Let's talk about that for a second. Obesity is a hot topic for children in our country today. Why is it that you think breastfed babies are statistically a lot less likely to be overweight than formula-fed babies? Anyone have any ideas? You can put them in the chat. If you feel like you want to unmute and answer. Less overfeeding. Adrian, yes. So we can easily overfeed a breastfed baby, or a bottle-fed baby, a formula-fed baby, by putting a bottle in every time they're fussy. We can easily overfeed them. And one of the things we can also easily do is help a child associate this, I'm upset, oh, I should eat. I'm upset, oh, I should eat. I'm upset, and every time I'm upset, someone puts a bottle in my mouth, and I get really full, and we can actually stretch their belly, and we can actually help them have a hard time understanding the feeling of I'm satisfied, and the feeling of I'm done now, and the feeling of, oh, I feel hungry. And so some of those nuances that a child learns at the beginning can be really changed when we are in control. It's very easy to say, The last bottle you took 3 ounces and you only took 1.5 ounces. Come on, you must still be hungry. You should finish this. I don't really want to waste this. Finish the bottle. Maybe you'll sleep longer. And with a breastfed baby who's feeding at the breast, it's impossible to overfeed. Babies actually have different sucks. They have a suck that says, I'm hungry, and stimulates letdown. They have a suck that says, yep, gulp, 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 I'm going to transfer milk. They have a suck that says, I just need to be comforted, and I'm just here for comfort and bonding, and I don't want to move a lot of milk. And the body will actually not overfeed a baby. And because it's always here and it's always available and it's always the right temperature, a baby doesn't have this feeling of, am I going to get food again? I should stuff myself full right now because I don't know when I'm going to get my next meal, because it's always there. And when you're feeding on demand, a baby's always getting a chance to eat. So yes, it is really great to set up the body for a child to understand full, understand hungry, and to and then there's all the like actual nutrition parts of it. But when it comes to the routines of eating, we can really set kids up for a lot of success when we allow them to pace themselves on the breast. It's free too. Yes. Okay. So great benefits for baby. Let's talk a little bit about mom. What are but why mom? I did see one that was fights or decrease the risk of breast cancer. Yes. Any other benefits for mom? Why would a mom be motivated to do this? It's free. That is a benefit for mom and dad. Weight loss, absolutely. Did you know you burn more calories breastfeeding than doing any other physical activity? And you're sitting on your butt while you do it. Woohoo! Let's see. Decreased risk of postpartum hemorrhage, PPH, yes. Stimulates the uterus to contract and return to normal after birth, absolutely. Why is that? Why is that? Oxytocin release. Yes, decreases hemorrhage. Isn't that interesting how for hundreds of years before we had IV Pitocin, or the ability to artificially give someone the ability to contract their uterus and decrease hemorrhage, that we had it given to us, that nipple stimulation, even if a baby's not latching, nipple stimulation can help you contract. I had my babies all at home, even though I'm a labor delivery nurse. I had home births with my babies with midwifery care. And that is one and I'm a photographer, which I don't know. I don't think I mentioned that before. I love photography, particularly birth photography. So I've actually been at many other home births and hospital births, photographing them. And I have had the opportunity to watch postpartum hemorrhage managed in a hospital, which I've participated in as a nurse, and postpartum hemorrhage managed in a home birth situation. And one of the skills that the midwives use in the home birth situation to manage postpartum hemorrhage is nipple stimulation. Believe it, it works, right? Stimulate the nipples, get the baby on, and the body knows what to do. Any other benefits for mom besides immediate postpartum? Weight loss. Fundal massage is super helpful. Yes, to decrease risk. Bonding with baby. Yep, we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up here. Any other benefits for mom? Did you know that mothers who breastfeed, the longer a woman breastfeeds for, the more benefit she gets? And that the longer a woman breastfeeds for, the lower her risk of cardiovascular disease is? Cardiovascular disease is one of the biggest things that women deal with in our country. We have more women, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but we have more women on like meds for cardiovascular related things. And breastfeeding for a long amount of time actually decreases that risk, along with ovarian cancer issue. Anything reproductive cancer related is decreased with breastfeeding as well. Did you know breastfeeding moms get the best sleep? Best breastfeeding co-sleeping moms of all the newborn moms who breastfeed exclusively and sleep with their babies get the best sleep of any postpartum mamas. So we're talking better sleep. Do you know breastfeeding moms have lower rates of postpartum anxiety and depression? That's great. They're actually happier because of hormones that are released when they breastfeed. That's great. And yes, helps with bonding. It is rewarding to breastfeed. Kelly says, Mother's Day, it's rewarding to breastfeed. There's something super empowering about growing a human being with your body. And we know that in pregnancy, but then to continue to do that through a breastfeeding relationship is really an empowering experience for women. All right, what about dads? What's the benefit for dads? Why should you guys who are here, if you're someday married and your wife says, I'm not sure I want to breastfeed, why should you be like, you should? here's the benefits for me. I could bring my husband in and he could tell you all the benefits of breastfeeding for him, but why? I mean, besides the fact that her boobs will look nice. Happy wife, happy life. Yes. Just kidding. Ashley's like, oh gosh. They'll look nice, but you're not allowed to touch them because it's too much going on there. No, what? Best nutrition for baby? Yeah, healthier child, healthier wife. Those should be pretty motivating things. Like if you know, like this is literally going to increase the health, decrease my trips to the doctor for my wife and my children. That's great. What else? It's free. We talked about that earlier. This financially makes a lot more sense. They don't have to help with bottle feeding. That is a real thing. My husband will tell you, like, he loves that I'm breastfeeding and he works really hard to support us in all the other ways, like making sure I'm fed and I have a drink and he's caring for all the other things, but he's not washing bottles. He's not up in the middle of the night feeding the baby because that's on me. He's like, I get really good sleep. And then there's at least one of us functioning super, super well the next day because I got some good sleep. I'm in a better mood, not dealing with some of the anxiety and depression things, right? He doesn't have to feed the baby. My husband would tell you that having a well-attached, bonded baby to mother is a huge blessing for him as well. A child who is going to be healthier, a mama who's going to be happier, and selfishly, it's not on his plate in the middle of the night. He's not having to worry about, he's worrying about keeping mom and baby together. Here you go, honey. And it takes a little bit of that burden off of him. All right, what about societally? Like why as a culture, as a society, if you're thinking like, I'm not planning to have kids, I don't care about the benefits for me, I don't care. Why as a culture and a society is this something that we should care about? It can also reduce childhood anxiety, yes, and make child more confident. Thank you, Ashley, for adding that. Healthier kids, yes. We're talking about a healthier next generation, right? A generation that's not relying on our pharmaceutical company as much potentially, right? Decreasing obesity, decreasing healthcare costs. Yes, if we're talking money, we have a massive decrease in healthcare costs if we can help our children get breast milk, if we can help women breastfeed their babies. In Sweden, they have some of the highest breastfeeding rates in the world. And they, as a country, are very invested in health, much more than we are, and preventative health. And women there get an entire year of paid maternity leave because as a country, they have decided that if this mom and this baby have their first year and we can support them and we can get them breastfeeding, we can get them in a good rhythm and that mom doesn't have to worry about work, we will set ourselves up for a much healthier society in the long run. That 1 year investment is well worth it for that woman's health and that child's health. How much maternity leave do we get here in the US? Anyone? If you're lucky, you might get 6 weeks is what most people are getting. You might get 6 weeks paid and an additional 6 weeks unpaid that you can stay home without losing your job. Women are barely done bleeding at 6 weeks, and they are hardly got a breastfeeding relationship that's established, and we are asking them to leave their babies and go back to work. That is not supportive to breastfeeding. That is not setting us up for a future that of healthy, bonded mothers and babies. I believe in Sweden, men get 6 months. So moms get a year and dads get 6 months to be home with their babies, supporting that early breastfeeding relationship. Let's all move. I'm tempted. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the benefits. I'm going to jump back to sharing my screen here, and we're going to go through a few other things. Can you guys see the screen again here? Let me pull the chat up so I can see it. Okay, thank you. All right. So if 90% of American women could breastfeed for 1 year, we would keep 14,000 women from having heart attacks each year, and we would prevent 54,000 women from having to take medications to control their blood pressure. This is something we don't talk about very much, but when you have that mommy who comes into the ER for some random reason who's breastfeeding her 1-year-old, we want to encourage her. That's great. She's doing something dramatic for her health and decreasing her risk of cardiac issues. This is a really amazing TED Talk, by the way. TED Med, if you ever go TED Med breastfeeding, you will find this incredible TED Talk. What about this quote from the World Health Organization? If every child was breastfed within 1 hour of birth, given only breast milk for the first 6 months, and continued breastfeeding to the age of 2, about 800,000 child lives would be saved each year. Does that boggle your brain? This is sad, first of all, that this is not happening, but this is also so simple. Getting a baby at the breast within the first hour of birth, supporting a mom exclusively getting her baby breast milk for 6 months, and then encouraging her to continue that breastfeeding relationship for 2 years. Now, does that mean that your 2-year-old eats no other food and they rely solely on you and you're nursing them 50 times a day? No. We're talking a 2-year-old breastfeeding relationship often looks like, well, we nurse first thing in the morning when we wake up. We nurse before we go down for a nap in the afternoon. And we nurse right before bed, maybe 3 times. Did you know even transferring 1 ounce of milk is enough to boost the immune system and keep the micronutrients going in? So we don't need a baby to live only on breast milk for 2 years. We need to support a mommy connecting with her baby maybe 3 times a day till that baby's 2, and we would save so many children's lives. What about that full-term breastfeeding and nursing for longer? Take a quick glance at this. We've talked about a lot of these, but a lot of times we think, oh, there's no benefit to breastfeeding past 6 months. Oh, there's no benefit. I've recently, just last week, I run a breastfeeding support group, and I had a mom come in whose pediatrician told her that now that her baby's 1, she doesn't really need to breastfeed anymore. She should actually try to get the baby off the breast and add cow's milk instead. And I thought, luckily this woman's like, I just smiled and nodded and came and I'm not doing that. I'm not going to stop my breastfeeding relationship because my pediatrician doesn't know that there are benefits to breastfeeding past the age of 1. Does anyone want to, this is fun. Just a quick question for you in the chat. Tell me, what do you think the biological norm age for weaning a child is? If we just look at like biology and history, what is the average age or their age range in which a human mammal child should wean or would wean? Anyone have a guess for me? 1 year, 5 years, 5 years. Anyone else? 18 months, 2 years, 2 years. 2, 4 to 6. Let's get a few more guesses. Give me a few more guesses and I'll tell you. 4, 3. Okay. Baby, I'm in the middle of a presentation.
Can I have some bubbly water?
Go, yes, that's fine. Sorry. Only 1 interruption so far, not bad. Okay, so we believe the biological normal age for a child to wean is somewhere between 4 and 7 years old. 4 and 7 years old. Why do we believe that? One reason is that a child's immune system is not fully functioning until after about the age of 3.5 to 4 years old. So a baby is born with a sterile gut. We're going to jump into gut understanding real quick. 70 to 80% of your immune system comes from your gut, right? IgA is made from microbes that live in your gut. So that is where your immune system is coming from. So if you're a baby and you're born and you have a sterile gut, you have not built your microbiome yet, do you have an immune system of your own? No, that's why we need mom. That's why we have mom's milk coming in and providing immunity. Now that gut has got to grow and develop. And for the first 6 months, it's actually open. We don't even have a sealed and closed gut. It's one of the more immature systems in the body, right? So it's not even sealed up yet. So about 6 months-ish, the baby's gut's a little bit more sealed. We are able to have a little bit of our own immune response, which is why we start introducing solids after 6 months, because now a baby can actually create a little bit of an immune response to something that they may ingest on their own, okay? Now we go down the road. It takes years for the gut immune response to get fully functioning. So for those years, having that little bit of breast milk, that little bit of immune support from a mom is really important. Fun fact. Did you know that when you latch a baby onto your boob, your breast absorbs the saliva from their mouth, takes inventory on what is in that saliva and what the baby needs, what nutrition that baby needs, and what that baby's recently been exposed to. Your body then creates an immune response to what that baby's been exposed to and fluctuates the milk to meet the nutritional needs. So that next feeding that a baby has is nutritionally exactly what they need. Maybe that's more hydration. Maybe there's a growth spurt happening. Maybe they're lacking in some nutrients because they're a 2-year-old and they're super picky and all they want is macaroni and cheese every single day and they won't eat anything green. No problem if you're breastfeeding, because your body's going to say, this baby is lacking in some nutrients. No problem. I gotcha. And it adjusts for that baby. Is this amazing to anyone else? I think it's one of the most amazing things. So when my 2-year-old goes and licks the side of the slide at the playground and exposes themselves to who knows what and comes and latches on, I get to create immune response for my baby. My strong, robust immune system gets to help my baby. And like within an hour, I've got an immune response to whatever that baby was exposed to. Fun fact, now when you're nursing 2 babies, I got my 3-year-old nursing over here. Oh, is there a question?
No, I was just going to share my story of, because I have one side that was my donor side, one side was my breastfeeding side with my littlest one. And so at one point I did a speech for one of my speech classes on breast milk. It was ridiculous, but I had a sick kid. My little one was sick, so I was breastfeeding her on my one side and pumping on the other. So I decided to bring 2 vials of milk that I had pumped that morning to show the difference in the concentration and the color of the milk. One with my little one who'd been sick. It was, a little bit thicker. It was a little yellow. It was just different compared to this bluish, kind of really pale colored one that was from the other. Literally, I pumped them at the exact same time.
Isn't that amazing? We see this with women who choose to do the same thing Ashley just talked about. Like, I'm going to nurse my 3-year-old on this boob, and I'm going to nurse my newborn on this boob, but I'm not going to switch him. This boob will make newborn milk because this boob is accepting saliva from a newborn and creating newborn milk. That amount, that consistency, what that newborn needs. This boob's absorbing saliva from a 3-year-old and creating 3-year-old milk. Now, I always switched back and forth, flippity floppity, because I never wanted to keep track. So my body is making an immune response to my 3-year-old, and my newborn is getting immunity and much less likely to be sick from whatever the 3-year-old brings home from preschool. It's amazing. It's amazing. I can hear my baby screaming right now, and I wish they would just bring her in. Hold on one sec. Oh, it's okay. I'm happy to nurse her. She's getting a diaper change and just screaming her head off. Sorry. I'm like, guys, it's a breastfeeding talk. I can nurse the baby in the breastfeeding talk. Okay. So anyways, I think that's so cool. Let's go back to sharing our screen. Let's get back to our conversation. Okay. Let me get the chat up again here. Okay. Whoa. So let's talk about quickly what's neurologically happening. Prolactin is necessary for milk, for making milk. After delivery, levels of progesterone and estrogen are going to drop, and prolactin is no longer blocked. So it's able to really help us make milk. Prolactin levels are highest about 30 minutes after the beginning of a feeding. So this is a really interesting thing to understand, that when a baby is on and nursing and they're 30 minutes after they've latched on, our prolactin levels are going to be really high, and that's what's going to be making milk. So we're literally in this process of like making milk as the feeding is happening and finishing for the next feeding. We're going to show you a graph here in a little bit that's super cool. So the other things that are interesting to know is that during the first few weeks, the more the baby sucks and stimulates the nipple, the more prolactin is produced, and the more milk is produced from that increase in prolactin. More prolactin is produced at night So breastfeeding at night is super important. So if you have ever heard, or you have moms who think that they need to get their babies to sleep through the night, like that is just in the first year of life, there should be no manipulating of sleep, no sleep training babies, no forcing them to sleep longer, no sleeping through the night, because for twofold. One, to maintain a breastfeeding relationship, we need a baby to nurse at night for prolactin's sake. Prolactin, you're most sensitive to those hormones between 1 and 5 a.m. So most babies will nurse frequently during that time, maybe at 1 a.m., at 3 a.m., at 5 a.m., because that's when their mama's most responsive and her prolactin levels are going to be the highest. They're going to get the most bang for their buck by stimulating the body during that time. The other thing that prolactin does is it actually helps moms to feel relaxed and really sleepy. So she's going to rest really well, even if she's breastfeeding through the night. God designed this beautifully. A mom has to wake up every 2 hours to feed her baby at night, but guess what? The process of latching her baby on literally releases hormones that help her fall back to sleep. Now, this has happened many times for me when I didn't want to fall asleep and I'm wide awake and I go to sit down in my chair and I nurse my baby and oh my God, I'm so tired all of a sudden. Oh, I feel like I need a nap. And you sometimes can't control it. It's crazy. But this is also the design for helping women heal. In the first 6 weeks, you should be latching your baby all the time. If you've ever been told or heard someone say, a baby will eat every 2 to 3 hours, that's BS. It's BS. Babies often nurse much more frequently than that, sometimes every hour when they're doing a growth spurt. So we're talking like 24 times in a 24-hour period. But what is mama supposed to be doing in those first 6 weeks? Feeding her baby and resting, because she just birthed a child out of her vagina and it's not exactly the easiest thing to bounce back from. You should be resting. So your body literally latches baby. Oh, I feel so tired. I feel like I could sleep. Great, good. That's what you should be doing. Oh, baby wants to nurse again. Oh, I feel so tired. I think I should sleep. Great, that's what you should be doing. Our body does an incredible job of helping women heal and rest and make milk. So here's a quick just example of what we just talked about. More prolactins at night. This also is what suppresses your ovulation, which is why often an exclusively breastfeeding mom can utilize breastfeeding as a form of birth control, as long as she is exclusively breastfeeding and not pumping and not giving bottles, not giving pacifiers, and she's nursing through the night. Often it will suppress your ovulation, your body's ability to have another baby, because your body's going, oh, we're keeping one human alive, not time to grow another. Nope, nope, nope. The other thing that is good to know is that sex drive is decreased dramatically during this time too, because your body doesn't want to make another baby. So your sex drive can be really low. And that can be really confusing to women and men who are like, well, 6 weeks, the doctor said we were fine to have sex again. And women were like, don't touch me. I'm not at a place where I want to do that. And that's okay. It's because your body doesn't want to make another human while it's keeping one alive. And that's part of this too. So let's talk about oxytocin. Look at my necklace. This is how obsessed I am. This is the oxytocin molecule in a necklace. Oh, also my earrings. Hold on. I have to show you my earrings. Can you see what they are? Pregnant mom, breastfeeding mom, baby wearing mom. Yeah, I'm obsessed. I wore them on purpose just for you guys. Okay, so oxytocin starts working when a mother expects to feed her baby or while the baby is suckling. Now, oxytocin is what allows what we would call the letdown, or the milk to be released from the breast. Does anyone know another time when oxytocin is released in a large amount in our brain? It doesn't just happen during lactation. There's 2 other times when large amounts of oxytocin are released in our brain. Does anyone know? You want to put it in the chat? Contraction, sex, yes, labor and sex. Having an orgasm and having a baby. Making a baby, pushing a baby out, and keeping a baby alive. Reproduction, oxytocin. Now, this is the same with mammals. Mammals have oxytocin release. Has anyone ever had a dog or a cat have puppies or kittens? Question for you. Did they do it in the middle of the kitchen with all the lights on and the neighborhood kids watching? Probably not. They probably hid in a closet in a dark, safe spot, maybe in the middle of the night. When I was a kid, our cat had kittens in a bin of my stuffed animals that was in my closet. We had to throw all those stuffed animals out, but it was a perfect nest for her and her babies. So oxytocin is released when we feel safe, when we feel relaxed, and that process in our brain is what allows our milk to go to our babies. If a mother is in severe pain or emotionally upset, her oxytocin reflex may become inhibited. This is really interesting, you guys. We can't force a woman. Think of it all the same as as sex, as an orgasm. If I told you you have 10 minutes to have an orgasm and I'm going to watch you, and if you don't do it right now, then you have failed and I'm going to have to intervene medically. Like, we literally do this to women in labor. If you don't dilate, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to start you on Pitocin. We're going to have to pop your bag of water. And we're here with 15 things attached to you watching. Go do it. Oxytocin is shy. It is not going to perform for you. And the same thing happens in breastfeeding world. If we sit and tell them, well, latch your baby, feed your baby, you just got to feed the baby. Just put the baby on. It'll be fine. Just feed the baby. And the baby's screaming and she's stressed out and she's in pain because she's just birthed a baby. Is her oxytocin going to be like, let's go, let's have an oxytocin party? No. So one of the best things that you can do as a care provider in the hospital with either a postpartum mom or any breastfeeding woman that you are caring for is to provide her a space that feels safe, that feels uninterrupted, potentially dark and comfortable. Give her an expectation of who's going to be coming in her room and when. What if I told you you need to have an orgasm, but at any moment in time, someone could walk in and interrupt what you're doing? Would you be able to relax and have an intimate moment, knowing that at any minute someone might walk in the door? No. So if we're trying to allow women to labor, if you're in labor and delivery, these are all labor tips too. If we're going to allow her to labor, or if we're going to allow her body hormonally to do what needs to happen to feed her baby, she needs to feel safe. She needs to feel like she's not going to be interrupted. You can tell her, you know what, I'm going to be coming back at this time. I'm not going to let anyone bother you. I'm going to put up a do not disturb sign. So you just have some space, right? Let me turn down the lights for you. Let me have your husband rub your feet for a minute while you sit here and relax to feed your baby. Can I get you something to drink? Would you like some warm tea? Like, can I create an environment in labor and delivery even that feels safe and dark and quiet and oxytocin friendly? Because otherwise we're literally fighting the body, and the body will not perform for us just because we want it to perform for us. So it's very important to understand the oxytocin reflex, because it really explains why we need to keep moms and babies together. If we are separating moms and babies, is she relaxed and feeling safe? No, the baby she carried for 9 months is not in her sight. She is not feeling safe. She is not feeling relaxed. She is emotionally stressed. That will literally inhibit her body's actual ability to do what it needs to do. So we need to keep moms and babies together and create an environment that feels safe for them. Oxytocin has really important psychological effects that actually change the brain for the mom. This is going to allow her to feel a sense of love for her human child. And this is very important from a biological standpoint, or we would not keep babies alive. Labor is painful. I'll tell you, it's painful. I've had 4 of them. It was not the most euphoric moment in my life. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat? Yes, but it's hard and painful. But that oxytocin that we get at birth, and that oxytocin that we get every time we latch our baby, helps us go, I love you. Even though you caused a lot of pain, I don't feel like putting you in the dumpster. I love you. Okay, I'll keep you around. And so that's really important for moms to feel bonded and protective of their babies. This is also going to help them feel more calm. It's going to reduce stress. It's going to help them feel that attachment, which is excessively important for the child's health and the mother's. So here's another quick, we talked about this, how it helps the uterus to contract. That sensation from the nipples is going to release oxytocin, and we're going to be able to have that milk flowing to the baby, emotional connection. So here, I'm sorry, it's a little blurry, but here's a quick idea of what's happening hormonally. You can see the oxytocin is that purple on the bottom, and it goes up as we're breastfeeding. And as it drops, then prolactin goes up, and we are working on making more milk for the next feeding. And then the baby latches again, our oxytocin goes up. And it's this beautiful rhythm that happens with these hormones that allow us to have a successful breastfeeding relationship. So here's just another quick picture of that chart. Basically, oxytocin and prolactin are triggered. The drive for intimacy increases for a mom. And what's really interesting is her actual neurochemical pathways in her brain change when this happens. Did you know that neuroplasticity, our brains go through different phases of being like more plastic, like moldable, so to say. We call it neuroplasticity. During pregnancy and breastfeeding is one of the times when a woman's brain is most neuroplastic. Its ability to change neuropathways is higher during that time than just about any other time in her life as an adult person. So this is literally the design for how a mom's brain will change, because becoming a mother is not something that is just simple. Unlike, I can totally care for another human 24/7, all of a sudden with no problem at all. No, your brain literally needs to change. And these hormones and this repetitive breastfeeding and bonding actually creates different neuropathways in our brains. So we're better moms to our babies. That is so cool. All right, when you breastfeed, you are relating to a little person in a way that you have never related to anyone else. So new neurochemical pathways in the mother's brain are created that reinforce that maternal behavior. So it's huge. Chemical imprinting that increases oxytocin. So all these things kind of build on themselves in the brain. And it results in a very motivated, highly attentive, and aggressively protective brain that compels a breastfeeding mother to alter her responses and her priorities in her life. So this is really interesting, because I can't tell you the number of women I've talked to who were super driven by their career, loved work. Maybe they were nurses even. I have a lot of nurse friends. They have a baby and all of a sudden they're like, I just want to be home with my baby. I never thought I would not want to be at work, but I need to be home with my baby. And literally her brain is changing. These neurochemical pathways are being set that put a drive in her to protect her baby. That mama bear of like, don't mess with my child, actually changing the brain. And that is happening with the breastfeeding relationship. These are deep, deep things happening in the brain that allow that mother to protect her child for years and years and years, allow her to feel bonded to that child, and literally help her change her responses and her priorities to attend to this tiny human. That is amazing. And this is important for us to support this and see the value in this relationship. So here are just some pictures that I want to just show you real quick. As a culture here in the US, we've worked really hard to eliminate the need for the breastfeeding mom. We have devices that can feed your baby for you. We can attach things. We can put it on a pillow. We can even put this thing on the dad's shoulder so that you don't have to pay attention. You can bottle feed that baby, but nothing replaces the baby at the breast. For a baby, for a mom, neurologically, physiologically, nothing can replace that. Pumping is fabulous and we use it when we need to, but there are things that happen in a mother's brain and in a child's brain that cannot be found in any other place. So let's see here. Lactation also facilitates specifically social, like memorization for social information. Breastfeeding mothers show improved memory for human faces, which I think is just so interesting. So quite simply at the end here, the more oxytocin you have, the more loving and attentive you are to your baby. So let's talk a little bit about the breastfeeding baby friendly initiative. This is an initiative that is actually a worldwide thing. Hospitals can apply to be what's considered baby friendly. And when they apply for this baby friendly seal of approval, so to say, they have to complete 10 steps. And in those 10 steps of being baby friendly, there are very specific things about how we support the mother-baby dyad. Does anyone know off the top of your head the hospitals that you are rotating through right now in clinicals? Are they baby friendly or not? Do you even know if the hospital that you're at is a baby friendly hospital? Tell me in the chat. Mercy is yes. Courtney says yes. Hers is. Linda says yes. All the hospitals in SAC are. Kaiser is. Yay. Part of the reason is because of my mom. I'm just going to shout her out real quick. She does private consulting, and anytime a hospital wants to go baby friendly, they hire her, at least in California, and she helps them go baby friendly. Woo, woo. All right, so baby friendly means that we have made a big decision that as an institution, we are going to support breastfeeding. We are going to allow skin to skin contact between the mother and baby immediately after birth and throughout the hospital stay. We are not putting babies in nurseries. We are not taking them away at night so mom can rest. Why would we not want to do that at night? What's higher at night? Prolactin. Let's not remove a baby from its mother in the middle of the time when her hormones need that baby closest. Rooming in, keeping that baby together. During assessments, there should not be taking the baby, oh, we're going to take the baby to the exam room for the assessment. Nope, nope, nope. We're going to take the baby away for the bath. Nope, we're going to take the baby away. No, we're not. We're a baby-friendly hospital. We're going to keep the baby in the room. Now, a lot of times it's more convenient for nursing staff to take babies other places. A lot of times it's easier for us when I worked at a teaching institution. Okay. So we had like the doctor and then all the med students, and we had the nurses and all the nursing students. And we had maybe 15 people who wanted to see the newborn exam happening on postpartum. It was a heck of a lot easier for me to go take a baby out of a room into an exam room, have the 15 people gather around and talk them through the baby exam. Sure, that's great for the students. Is that what's best for this mom and this dad and this baby? No. And so as the students who might be in those baby-friendly hospitals, you can advocate and say, aren't we supposed to keep the babies in? Or ask the mom, would you like them to do the exam here so you can see it? Because most moms are going to say, yes, yes. Don't take my baby out of this room. I want to see what you're doing to my baby. I want to see the exam. I want to know all the things that you're going to talk about. Yes, I want the baby here. And so we can advocate for that. And as a baby-friendly hospital, that should be always. But I'll tell you, I worked at a baby-friendly hospital and it wasn't always. So we can advocate and we can encourage moms to advocate for that for themselves as well. Also, in a baby-friendly hospital, breastfeeding should be something that everyone is trained in. So we should have nurses that know how to help babies latch. We should know who our lactation consultants are and when we can refer moms to those services, because we support breastfeeding in a lactation or baby-friendly hospital. So that is a really, really important thing to know. If you're in a baby-friendly hospital, we should be doing all of these things, and you can help facilitate those things. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how you can help and why this could be helpful and important to you. So we're gonna need to first understand the importance of breastfeeding relationship, which we talked about a lot. But I want you to understand, you, nursing student, you, to understand that you have more power and influence than you understand as a care provider in a hospital. When you walk into a room, even if you're a student, you're in scrubs, and a mother who's just given birth, who is feeling vulnerable and confused and sleep deprived, is going to take what you say and believe it. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to believe it. So I want to empower you that your words make a difference. If you walk in and you see a mom who's struggling to breastfeed, encouraging her by saying, oh, breastfeeding is so good for you and your baby. I'm so glad that you're going to breastfeed. That is powerful, more powerful than you understand, because you are seen as an authority figure in the hospital. Even though you're a nursing student who probably doesn't know very much, you are still seen in an authority situation for a vulnerable mom in postpartum. So I want you to don't take that lightly. Your words mean something. And there are a few things that I want you to drill into your brain that are going to be the words that come out of your mouth when you talk to a breastfeeding mom. One thing that most postpartum women think is, I don't think I have enough milk for the baby. I don't feel like there's enough milk. Colostrum, which is the milk that you have, started being made when you were about 17 weeks pregnant. So you can say, Mom, like, you've been making colostrum since you were like 17 weeks pregnant. And colostrum is the perfect food for your newborn. It's the perfect food. Here's one fun fact. Babies practice sucking and swallowing in utero, right? But do they practice breathing? Is there air in there? No, there's no air in utero. So they have to learn how to suck, swallow, breathe in a coordinated fashion when they're born. If we took a fire hose and stuffed it in their mouth, they would aspirate because they can't coordinate suck, swallow, breathe, right? That is something that they have to practice. So the body, the woman's body, creates colostrum that is thick, like a thickened liquid, that is hard to move from the breast, that takes time so that a baby can practice suck, swallow, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe, and get a little bit. Suck, swallow, breathe. I mean, you guys have been through Gero. You know, we give those old people thickened liquids so they don't aspirate, right? This is, our body does that for our babies while they're learning to breathe. That's amazing. We want to encourage a mom who feels like, I don't have very much. No, 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 no. You have the perfect thick colostrum for your baby who's learning how to breathe. And we don't want to fire hose them with a whole bunch of milk. I'm really glad you don't have a whole bunch of milk. You will in a few days, because in a few days, your baby's going to have practice, suck, swallow, breathe a lot, and they're going to be more coordinated, and your body's going to know they're more coordinated, and your body's going to make more milk, increase the volume, and they're going to get a lot more when they're not going to aspirate. That's amazing. Oh, but my baby seems so hungry. Well, you know what? Their tummy is tiny. Your baby's tummy is tiny, and we don't want to stretch it. So your body is going to make just a little bit, a few drops of milk, and that's perfect. But you know what? Your baby's going to probably be hungry in about 30 or 45 minutes because your baby's tummy is tiny. And they need little frequent meals, because for 9 months straight, they were getting food 24/7 via umbilical cord. So they don't really know what it feels like to have a full belly or to have an empty belly, or we've not had the digestion process happen yet. So we're going to give little tiny bits, and the amount of milk that you have is perfect. And your newborn's belly is tiny. I used to carry around a little bead that showed the size, so I could show moms this is how big your baby's belly is. The third thing I want you to know when you're talking to a new postpartum mom is that you're going to tell her your baby wants to be close to you and may want to nurse all the time. And that's perfect, because telling a mom, oh, your baby might want to nurse every 2 to 3 hours is a lie. A formula fed baby should not be fed more than every 2 to 3 hours, or we will overfeed them. But when we take that understanding and put it on a breastfeeding mom, we give her an unrealistic expectation. Her baby will want to be with her 24/7 because she equals survival. If a baby can't smell their mom, feel their mom, hear their mom, they think they're going to die, because thousands of years ago, they would have died. So babies are programmed to, where's my mom? I need to smell my mom. I need to feel my mom. I need to be right here. Did you know when a baby is right here, we call this the habitat? When a baby's in the habitat and they lay their little head down, the breast emits a smell that is the same as amniotic fluid, so it smells like home. They can hear mama's heartbeat, so it sounds like home. And the rhythmic breathing on a mom's chest rocks them, so it feels like being in utero. And they are happy here. They are safe here. They know that they'll survive here. Swaddling a baby and putting them in a plastic container next to mom is not helpful. Not helpful to baby, not helpful to mom. We want to unswaddle that baby and put them right here in the habitat. That's where they want to be. That's where their brain's going to feel the safest. That's where our oxytocin is going to be the highest. And we want to facilitate that as much as possible in the hospital and once we're at home. And so I'm going to I want to just jump to, I'm going to show you guys something real fast. I'm going to share a different picture. This is me postpartum with my baby. And I just want to show you my picture real quick here. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. This is minutes after my daughter was born. She came shooting out in the water in my kitchen. My, at that point in time, 9-year-old daughter caught her. She got to help deliver her baby sister. And this is me in bed, off my sore bottom, not sitting up on my sore bottom because I just pushed a baby out. You can see there's like chucks underneath me, right? And she is completely naked. You can't see that part, but she's completely naked, and she is against me laying on my chest, not wanting to nurse at this moment in time, but she is in the habitat. We have a blanket over the two of us. I am keeping her warm. My body actually warms her faster than any incubator ever. So know that if a baby's cold, the place they should be is skin to skin with mom, because mom's body will change like degrees, temperature degrees, to adjust for that baby. Where's the other one I wanted to show you? Let's see here. Oh, here's a little bit later. This is the next day I'd showered. There's my older daughter, but I want to show you here now. She is still naked. She is against me skin to skin. I do have a tiny little bra on. We're going to zoom in real quick on her latch because I want to just talk briefly. We're going to talk about latch real quick. Do you see how her lips are super open and she's relaxed? Her hand is here and a little bit relaxed. It's not super tight, but she is in the habitat. This is where she lived for a couple weeks. Skin to skin, she's naked under this blanket with a diaper on in the habitat. Okay, let me see here. Oh, I want to show you this. Talking about latch. We don't need to hear my husband talking. Okay, but I want to show you here a simple way when you're not a breastfeeding expert, but a simple way as a student that you could potentially have an idea of whether a latch and feeding was going well. As you see the movement at the bottom of the ear, that movement is appropriate. We should see movement of the entire jaw, including a wiggle of the ear that tells us that the baby is moving their tongue the correct way. We've got lips that are flanged open, but I also want you to take note of this arm here. This is an indication that the baby is ready for a feeding. Arms that are tight, hands that are closed show us that a baby is hungry and eager for a feeding. And as the baby gets more satisfied, they will loosen up their hands and relax them down a little bit more. Now, if we're swaddling babies with their arms down, we are missing out on a lot of the communication that happens with the baby's hands. They actually need their hands available to them in order to communicate well, to show feeding cues well, and to show us where they're at in their feeding. So you can wrap up a baby, but we want to make sure their hands are here and available to show those feeding cues and to let us know how they're doing with their feeding. So you can see how this is the very beginning of a feeding and she is like hungry and tight in on there. Okay, I wanted to show you that. Let me go back to my other thing here. Where is it? Oh, here. Okay. What else? You're going to encourage those newly postpartum moms to use biological nurturing. That is the term that we use for the laid back position that you saw me in those pictures. Laid back, not on our painful bottoms, thank goodness. And when we have that biological nurturing position, babies will often latch on their own. Babies are designed to do this. So if you're thinking like, oh gosh, this mom wants to breastfeed. I'm not a lactation consultant. I don't know how to help her. This is what you're going to do. You're going to lay her back, get her off her sore bottom. You're going to make sure the baby and her are skin to skin. You're going to put baby tummy to tummy with her. Maybe the feet go off to the side a little bit, diagonal, and you're going to allow the baby freedom of movement to latch themselves. Now you're thinking, yeah, right. You babies latch themselves. Yes, latch themselves. And I'm going to show you because of course I videoed my baby latching itself. Where's my thing? So we're going to show you this real quick because this is what you could potentially see in the hospital and what you would want to support if you're an OB or postpartum. We want to allow a baby to latch on its own. Now, I'm fully aware that I'm about to show you my nipple. I'm sorry if that makes any of you uncomfortable. It certainly does not make me. You're all nurses. You've seen everything. So here we go. Let me share my screen. Okay, so what I want you to see here is that it's hard to see the angle that we're at, but we're at an angle and I am going to move, baby's hands are free, but I want you to watch her behaviors here. So babies, when they're first latching, are going to do some of these behaviors, going back and forth. She's going to lick a little bit. She's going to push her hands on my breast to kind of help stimulate my breast. You see her licking, nibble. Now it can look like, oh, she's so confused. She doesn't know what she's doing. Let's help her. But actually, no, we don't need to help her at all. I'm just allowing her to be near my body, smelling things. She brings her hand to her mouth. So babies will often smell their hands and then go back to the breast. So she brought the hand to her mouth to smell it. She's back to the breast. She's licking. The smell is familiar and I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting her go. She's bobbing back and forth. She's licking, she's bobbing. And it might take a little bit for her to actually get a really good latch, but then you watch, here we go. And she has latches on and starts suckling. And then you can see the ear gets a little bit of a wiggle going. And we know that she's got a nice deep latch and she will have a feeding there all by herself. This is biological nurturing and what can happen often for babies that are uninterrupted that we just put to the breast. So if you're thinking, I don't know what to do that. Lay mom back, baby skin to skin, and see what happens. Now, let's say that's not working well. Who has their balloon? It's your time. It's your time. Get your balloon out. Okay, blow it up to what I'm gonna call boob size. For me, that's kind of small. Ashley has a giant boob. Not really in real life, but in her balloon life. So there we go. Okay, boob size. Boob size. Maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger. That's probably green boob. That's a big boob. It's probably too big of a boob. Can you let out a little bit of air? Boob size-ish. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, let's say that baby is not latching. You can tie it off once you have a good small boob size. Let's say that baby's not latching on its own. Biological nurturing is not really working. Maybe that mommy had an epidural. Often epidural babies don't latch super well. Maybe there was a vacuum delivery. They often don't latch super well. So we've got our boobs. You've got your balloons. Okay, first thing you're gonna do, if you have chapstick, you're gonna do it with chapstick or lipstick. I'm sure you all have bright red lipstick with you, right? If you don't have those things, you're gonna just lick your lips. I'm gonna put lipstick on so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, first step. Lick your lips, put your chapstick on, and you're just going to open your mouth and make a mark on the boob. Open your mouth and make a mark on your balloon. Yes, we have a mark? Okay, that's step number one. Step number two, reapply. If you have chapstick or lipstick. Step number two, you're gonna take your fingers back from your lip mark a little bit, and we're gonna just smash the breast a little bit, smash the balloon a little bit, okay? Open mouth, straight on. Now you should see that it's a little bit wider. Should be a little bit more than your first mark. Not much usually, but a little bit more. Okay, step three, reapply. Chapstick, lick your lips. You can do pen marks if you need to, like if you got a lip mark with your, you can do pen marks. Anyways, okay, so here we are. Now, we're going to put our fingers back. We're going to compress our balloon. And I want you to imagine this is a giant In-N-Out burger, like a double, a triple, whatever. If you were actually going to eat a gigantic burger of some kind or sandwich, you're not just gonna head straight at it, right? You're actually going to probably start with your bottom lip and roll that sandwich into your mouth. So we're gonna go like this. I want you to look at your lip marks. Can you see the markings when I put it in and rolled? Do you see the difference? Did anyone get a dramatic difference in your markings? Here were my first ones. Here are my second ones. This is what happens with mommies who are trying to latch their babies who've never breastfed before. They think, just pop the baby on, right? And then we get this sore nipple and the baby is just sucking on the nipple. And milk is not at the nipple, it's actually much further. And so one of the things that you can try to do to help this mommy, even if you're not a breastfeeding expert, is to teach her this idea. We're going to sandwich your breast. We're going to point the nipple to the nose of the baby, and we're going to tickle it because the baby's going to open their mouth really wide, and we're going to roll the breast in. And we're going to get a good deep latch. We're going to get a lot of breast tissue in the baby. Did you know that babies have a spot on their palate that when it's touched, it's a reflex to suck? Run your tongue along your palate. It's hard, then towards the back, it gets really soft. The junction between the hard and soft palate is there's a spot where a reflex, just like when you hit your knee. And if you touch that spot in a baby's mouth, they will suck. Our goal is to get the nipple to touch that spot. That spot's up here. So we want to aim up here. We don't want to be pointing the nipple down. We want to be pointing it up. And we want to aim for that top spot. And we want to tickle the baby's nose. And when they open, we're going to get as much of that breast in as possible. That is a simple way that you can help teach a mom to latch her baby. Now, if she's actually doing it, we want to make sure that we're compressing parallel to the mouth, right? So if I'm holding, I need a baby. If I'm holding my baby like this, their head's here and their body's this way, I'm gonna go like this, right? If I'm feeding my baby in like a football, I'm gonna go like this, right? I wanna match the sandwich. We wouldn't eat our hamburger like this, right? That would be kind of challenging. But you guys are smart, you got that, right? We're just gonna line it up, right, with the baby. So this is one of the, without me having like 18 hours to teach you all the things I wanna teach you about breastfeeding, I want you to keep this in your mind of how you can potentially help a baby breastfeed by putting your fingers way, way back and trying to get a good amount of that breast tissue in so that baby can actually move milk better, because you can't move milk from the nipple. We'll have a lot of soreness, pain, discomfort, but we can move milk if we have a lot of the breast in. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. We're almost done, you guys. Let me go through these last couple things and then we'll have time for questions and we'll be done. Okay. The last thing that I want you to really understand is, we talked about this before, connect a mom with a lactation consultant. You don't have to know the answers, but you have to know where the answers are. So please, please, please know who are your resources. Where are the breastfeeding support groups? How can you connect this mom? Because she's going to need help potentially, and you want to be the person who provides that help to her. All right, let's see here. I think that is it. I have time for questions or any comments, and we're gonna do one more giveaway. Okay, so right now, I want you to share in the chat one thing that you found interesting about this, one takeaway that you thought, that's gonna burn in my brain forever. I want one takeaway, and Ashley's gonna choose someone to win another Starbucks gift card for someone who shares one takeaway or their favorite fact that they learned today. Someone said, I need to bring a little balloon with me to the hospital. Heck yeah, I definitely did. Let's see here. Most moms would prefer a burger. I know, too bad we can't provide them with a burger. Practice eating that while we latch your baby. That'll be great. I love that. All right, let's see here. People said breastfeeding reduces cancer. The big burger analogy, how to latch. Okay, history of breastfeeding. Oh, that each boob can make different milk. That is such a fun fact. Prolactin at night, saliva of the baby changes breast milk. Yes. Breastfeeding can have tons of health benefits for mom. Yes, I love it. All right, what was inside the first formula? Milk changed with the baby's needs. Awesome. I'm glad that you guys found some fun things that are interesting, and we will choose a little winner. Questions? Thank you for first of all, I know that many of you probably need to jump off and go. I really appreciate you spending time with me today and allowing me to share something I'm super passionate about with you. I just feel like this is one of those things that we should be talking about more. And I love that Ashley approached me and said, hey, do you want to have a conversation? I'd love to open this up to some nursing students. And I really appreciate your time. I understand time is valuable. You could all be studying right now, but instead you're spending time with me. And I appreciate that so much. I also just want you to know that I am on social media and posting things about breastfeeding education on social media. So if you are someone who's like, this is interesting, I want to be a lactation consultant, I want to do OB, feel free to follow. And I try to put up stuff with content a lot of days of the week. And I would love to have you following along my social media. I'll type it in the chat. And if you're interested in even connecting, if you have specific questions for me outside of the context of this, that you're thinking like, oh, in a week from now, I've got a question, you could message me and ask. I would love to be a resource to you and help you answer any of those questions that you have. So I'll put my Instagram, and it's Natalie Johnson in Facebook, but I'll put both of them in the chat in case any of you would like to connect with me there. Any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have them. No questions.
Well, I will say, while we're waiting everybody to kind of put their questions together, thank you, Natalie, so much. I'm so excited to be able to share this and be able to have this conversation with you and share this amazing information. Seems relevant. Where a lot of us are in our OB rotation right now, or will be going into our OB rotation. So
Well, I'm so happy. It's such a special time to be able to be a student in OB and see the amazing miracle of birth. Most people, most humans do not see another human born. Like moms even have often not witnessed birth except for their own, which they're in the middle of birthing their baby and not like getting to really witness it from an outside perspective. So it is a super special thing to be able to be in labor and delivery, watch babies come into the world, watch mothers transition to being a mom and to support them with their breastfeeding relationship. So I'm excited for you guys. I vividly remember that time in nursing school. I'm thinking it was just so cool, so cool. I will share a quick funny story. My husband, being my husband, knows a lot about breastfeeding. He has no choice. And my sister also is a NICU nurse. My mom was a NICU nurse. We're all breastfeeding fanatics. I nursed our babies forever, right? So he knows a ton. And when he was in nursing school, I had a ton of breastfeeding education and knowledge. He was in nursing school right after me. And during his OB Peds rotation, he said it was so hard because he knew all of these things. But most of his preceptors and the women on the floor were like, you're a guy. We're going to have you do something else. You can go be in the OR. Like you're not going to want your rotation on, like postpartum, are you? And he's like, I'm sitting outside the room, listening to the conversation, knowing all the answers, all the things that could be helpful, but they don't want me in there. So he's had a few opportunities from an anesthesia perspective to help, because he's done anesthesia for cesareans, a few, not a ton because he works at the VA now, but he's like, is it weird that, I'm the guy who's doing anesthesia, but as soon as the baby's out, I'm encouraging mom, like, we should start breast stimulation because it's going to help with the contract. Like, let's collect those drops of colostrum to give to your baby. And he's like, I mean, I don't know if it's weird, but like, I always start by saying, my wife's the lactation consultant. My wife's the lactation consultant. That's why I know this stuff, but I want to help you breastfeed your baby. So even you guys, you're going to have moments in nursing where you're interacting with breastfeeding women. And even if it's nothing more than saying, I'm so glad you're breastfeeding your baby, like that's powerful. I understand why you're doing that. And I'm so glad you're doing it. It's really great for you. That's powerful. So just poor guy trying to be helpful. I know, my poor husband. All right. No questions at all? No questions at all for me? Even just a pure curiosity, like, I'm curious about, nothing. Why I nurse my baby?
I do.
Yes.
I
Jan,
do. I have one. Yeah. So when you are feeding two of your babies or two kids, do you still form colostrum when you have a new baby? Even though
I
you're feeding
love
someone?
that question. What a great question. Okay, so what happens is this. You have like mature milk. You get pregnant. Between 17 and 20 weeks, your body starts to change it back to colostrum. Your toddler then nurses for the second half of your pregnancy and gets just colostrum. They're moving colostrum, little bits of milk. So it's not a full supply, like it's not going to fill them the way that it did before, which is why it's really great when they're spaced enough that like you've got a 2-year-old who's eating a whole bunch of foods, but they're getting colostrum. And your body will make colostrum and cater to the baby in the belly until your placenta is delivered. The placenta delivers and the hormones start to shift, just like we saw on that chart. And your body then gets saliva from the new baby and continues to make colostrum for the first couple of days until the body understands that the new baby is ready for an increase in volume, and the volume will then increase and adjust to more mature milk adapted then to both babies. But your body will cater to the baby in your belly and do just colostrum until that baby is ready for an increase in volume.
Wow. That's so cool.
It's so cool. And a lot of toddlers really like colostrum. It's very thick. It's very sweet. It's very dense in like flavor and nutrients. And so a lot of toddlers don't mind. They enjoy having colostrum for that second half. I will say it's not always the most comfortable thing to breastfeed during pregnancy. Your nipples get really sensitive and it can be kind of painful for some women. But I always felt like it was worth it to just power through. because I knew the reward on the back end of being postpartum and having my milk come in and being super engorged. Just call over the toddler to help. And there's a lot of benefit to tandem feeding for sure.
Lynn had a question in the chat. She wanted to know, does mom using a breast pump have all the same benefits of a breastfeeding mom? Any benefits that one using breast pump would miss?
That's a great question. So a lot of the health benefits for mom are still found even with expressing from a pump. The things that are going to be different is she's not getting the saliva from her baby. Now, if she's connecting, let's say she's working 8 hours a day and she's pumping 3 times at work, and then she's going home and connecting with her baby, then we're getting all the same like benefits as an exclusively breastfeeding relationship. If we have an exclusive pumping relationship, mom's milk is still going to be amazing and perfect for her baby, but it might not adjust quite as rapidly as we would see with a baby who's actually on the breast, because she's really connecting to the pump, not the baby. So we're going to see some differences for potentially like immunity. Not that it's, I don't want to say like, oh, well, then it's not worth it anymore. It's still like incredible and worth it. Did you know actually when a mom kisses her baby's head, she also will absorb whatever baby's been exposed to through the mucosa of her mouth. So even mommies that are, have you ever noticed that moms have this desire to like pick up babies, smell them and kiss them on the head? Even grandmas, like the first thing that they'll do with a new baby is like pick them up, smell them and kiss them. It's an internal drive to actually create more antibodies in your milk by kissing your baby frequently and exposing yourself to things that they have been exposed to on their head. So a mom will do that as a breastfeeding mom, even if she's pumping, and still get some of that immune benefit transfer. But for the mother's health, we still see great benefits for the mom, even if she's pumping. So yeah, it's a lot to have to do with her hormones and how the weight loss that's attributed to breastfeeding, the change in her body, and that happens still with pumping.
Hey, Lauren, you had a question.
I do. Thank you, Natalie and Ashley, for hosting this awesome presentation. So informative. My question is actually in regards to you, Natalie. I know you said that you nursed your children until they were 4 years old. Mm-hmm. What were those conversations like developmentally with children who can kind of understand what was going on?
Totally understand.
I'm curious.
Literally just went through this a few days ago. My son turned 4. So for me, with my first, I decided 4 because at about 3.5, I started getting what's called nursing aversion when I was nursing her. So it was this response, like a physiological response of like, I don't want you on me right now. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening? Like I'm starting to have some aversion. And I fully believe that if breastfeeding is not working for both parties involved, then it's not working. So at that point in time, I started having conversations with her like, we're going to wean soon. I'm not quite sure what that looks like, but we're gonna be done nursing. And I decided, we're gonna go to 4. And as soon as I knew we were gonna be done at 4, mentally it was much easier for me to work through some of that aversion, because I knew like I only have a couple more months nursing her, and we're nursing maybe twice a day, like in the morning and night. Like I could literally count how many more times I'm gonna nurse her before we're done. So we started talking about it. We're going to be done nursing. You're going to be a big kid. There's all these other ways that mommy can comfort you if you're feeling sad, or, we can cuddle, and it's literally talking about it. Soon, in a month from now, you're going to be a weaned kid. We're not going to breastfeed anymore. We've breastfed so long. And so for me, what I chose to do is have lots of conversations. We had weaning parties for my children. So in combo with their 4th birthday, I made them a book each of all the pictures I had of breastfeeding them from the minute they were born, and then like left some blank spots for our very last breastfeeding session. We nursed for the very last time and took a picture. We blew out candles on a cake together. We talked about how cool it had been that we had breastfed for 4 years, and that was things were going to be different now. The rule in my family was that you were not allowed to chew gum until you're a weaned kid. So as soon as our kids are weaned, they were allowed to chew gum. So everyone who came to the weaning party bought, my son has, I kid you not, like over 50 packs of gum in a little tote right now. Every kind of gum you could imagine. And he's like chewing it constantly. But I had decided like I wanted my kids to have something oral to do when they were thinking like, I just want to nurse. I just want to, I can grab some gum. I can chew gum and I can snuggle with my mom. And I would get them a weaning stuffy. So my son has this like tiger that's his stuffy that he can hold on to, that he got his weaning party. With my 2 older ones, it didn't work out with this 3rd one, but with my 2 older ones, after the weaning party, we rolled straight into our birthday party. And then my parents took them on a trip for 3 days. They went on a big kid trip with my parents, got on an airplane, got to go actually up to Sacramento to visit my sister. And so we had 3 days away from each other, 3 nights of falling asleep without nursing, 3 mornings of waking up without nursing. And it was their big kid, you're a big kid now, weaning trip. And so when they came home, it was very clear that like, you did 3 days without me. You don't need to nurse. You're going to be okay. So tons of conversation. For me, I wanted like tangible things like, this is the end. This was our last time. We're going to celebrate. And there's a lot of emotion. I mean, my son has a lot of emotion around it, and we're processing that. Every night he comes and he lays with me and says, I wish I could nurse. I don't want to be a big kid. I know this is hard. It's really hard. I'm sad too, but it's okay. Like, I'm here for you. I love you. We can still snuggle, and it's working through that, which I do think is a little bit interesting, because every time I've weaned one of my kids, I've had another one who's still nursing. And so it's almost like he doesn't think of it till I pull up his sister and nurse her because she's 5 months old and needs to nurse all the time, that he's like, oh, I want to nurse too. I'm like, I know, it's okay. But he's done really, really well. And this has only been a few days that we have been, on the 19th was his birthday. So we're on like day 6 of this. And he still has asked me today, he said one time, like, I don't like being a big kid. I want to nurse. I said, I know it's hard. But we're just talking about it and helping him process, because I also think we have to remember, like, part of my job as a mom is to help him learn how to deal with disappointment and things that he doesn't like, right? Like, this is a really valuable thing for him to say, I don't like this. And me to say, that's okay. Like, I still love you. And it's okay that you don't like this. This is where we're at. There's going to be things in life you don't like. Let's practice that skill right now of what we're going to do when we don't like something. So yeah, that's what we've done. It's worked out well.
I love Courtney's question. Did you get any negative responses from family, friends, healthcare professionals? And if so, how did you handle that?
Great question. So I think, first of all, I would say I don't get very many negative responses from anyone, but I think part of it is, you can't tell from Zoom, but I'm 6'1". I'm very tall. And when I'm nursing, especially in public, I probably have a look on my face that's like, say something, just say something. Come on. I would love to educate you on all the reasons why you can't tell me to cover right now. Like, I probably have that like presence, so I don't get a lot of comments. I one time have had someone come up to me and ask me to cover. Ironically, it was at my the hospital I worked for, baby friendly institution, had a gym, like with a pool and everything. And I was sitting out at the pool with my children in the middle of summer, everyone in their swimsuits, men without their boobs covered, right? And I'm sitting here nursing my 2-year-old, and I had the lifeguard come by and tell me that I needed to cover. And she got an earful, very polite earful, about how she was not legally allowed to ask me to do that, and how whatever, all the things. So I take it as an opportunity to educate people when they say something to me. My family members are all very pro breastfeeding. So it's never one quick story. My husband and I met at Sac State. I was the first person he met when he drove into Sacramento. Okay. We happen chance became roommates because we had a mutual friend who both needed roommates like a year later. I'd known of him. He was a baseball player, a volleyball player. He was cute. We end up becoming roommates. We end up going out to dinner, me and 2 of my male roommates, Craig, my husband, and another one. We're sitting at the dinner table and breastfeeding comes up because I'm me and I talk about breastfeeding all the time. And I say to both these guys, who are very good looking, athletic, kind, sweet people, I bet you guys were breastfed. And they're both like, I don't know. I never asked my mom if I was breastfed or not. I'm like, I bet you're breastfed. Like, let's call your moms and ask them. I want to know if I'm right. This is not a fake story. I call my now mother-in-law, the very first time I ever talked to her. I'm not even dating her son. Hi, Mrs. Johnson. My name's Natalie. I'm friends with your son, Craig. I'm just wondering if you breastfed him when he was little. She responds to me, oh yeah, of course. Actually, I breastfed all 6 of my kids until they were 2 years old. Breastfeeding is so great, isn't it? Yes, it is. Thank you so much. First conversation ever with my now mother-in-law, who I adore more than anyone in the world. Breastfed all of her children for 2 years. So my family is very pro breastfeeding. I would say most of the professionals that I know, within about a 5-minute conversation with me, don't think I'm crazy for nursing my child till 4. I just spew out all the reasons why I think it's really important and how our immune systems aren't, fully functioning until we're a little bit older, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I kind of want to help my kids' immune system as much as possible and all the things. People go, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of weird. And especially when I say, the biological norm for weaning is somewhere between 4 and 7 years old. So like 4 is kind of on the early end. I didn't say the other part of this earlier. Part of the reason we believe that is because if you look at other mammals, they nurse until they lose their milk teeth, their baby teeth. When do adults lose their baby, or when do children lose their teeth? 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, they start to lose all their teeth. So we believe, anthropologically speaking, humans were intended to have milk until their milk teeth fall out, which is usually after 4. So that's another reason why we believe that is the time that breast milk is still beneficial until. So yeah, I would say I haven't had very many negative situations, and I usually just share some of the fun facts that I know about breastfeeding, and most people are pretty responsive and don't think I'm too nutty. I don't know if that answers your question, Courtney. Okay. Any other questions? No? All of you who are young women who haven't had children yet, you better follow me on social media, because when you get pregnant and have a baby, you're going to want a lactation consultant to talk to, and I'm here for you. I'm here for it. I actually just a month ago, a woman was walking down the street wearing a baby. So naturally I stayed outside so I could talk to her. Like, I don't know who you are, but you're walking down the street and you're wearing a baby. We have to be friends. And she looks at me and she's like, Natalie? Yes, I don't remember your name, but you look familiar. You were my clinical instructor in my Gero rotation of nursing school. I taught Gero clinicals. And sure enough, she was my student, and she lives down the street, and she's breastfeeding, and now I get to help her breastfeed her babies. It's the best. So I can be that person for you too. All right, any other questions? No? Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much, you guys. This has been so fun. I'm just over here giggling at, like, I don't know. I feel like I get some flack at school for being like really, really enthusiastic about OB and breastfeeding and babies. And I'm like, I'm with my people right now.
Yes.
Natalie, I miss you.
Do we have winners for our 2 little drawings, Ashley?
I do. I have. So we did 5 different drawings.
Perfect. Let's hear who the winners are.
I have
I want
Claudia.
your emails, and I will email you gift cards.
A lot of them may have already dropped off, but I have Claudia,
Okay.
Deanna, Janet, Sarah, and Chris.
All right. Yay.
I will get you everybody's emails.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here and participating.
Thank you guys so much.
You know what? I actually do have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is the most common issue you see with difficulties in latching or breastfeeding with new moms? Is it latching, or what is like the most common barrier to this whole process that you typically see?
That's a great question. I would say the most common issue is actually a very a poor expectation of what this is actually going to look like. Like, most of the time a woman has been told things that then are not the way it's playing out for her. Like, most women have been told, you're going to nurse every 2 to 3 hours. And then when her baby wants to latch like every hour, she's pretty sure something's wrong. There's nothing wrong, but she's been told the wrong information, or she's been told, if you're doing it right, it's not going to hurt at all. And she's latching a baby and it's uncomfortable. And she's like, so it's like this not having the right understanding or the right support, I would say, is the biggest issue. There's my little one. We've been waiting for you. It's Julia. Are you ready to nurse? Looks like you just woke up. So besides that, like, bad information and moms who are The two most important things I think for a mom that would like ensure her breastfeeding success is whether she knows why she's doing it, like determination, this like, I know why I want to do this, and like this is important to me, and then the correct support. Like if she knows who to call, she knows what, like a husband who's like, yeah, I'm on board. Most women will power through all the other stuff. Most boobs are perfect and want to make milk, and most babies will latch, and like that's usually not the issue. The issue is all the stuff that happens up here and the things that she's been told that are incorrect, and the or being told like, well, you should probably pump to make sure your milk comes in, and then she's overwhelmed because she's trying to feed her baby and she's trying to pump and she can't figure out time, and then the pump goes on and nothing comes out, and then she's sure that she doesn't have milk because nothing came out in the pump, and it's like, oh gosh, like that was just bad advice. Like you definitely should not be pumping at the beginning, like you should, so that's the biggest thing, is just like this misunderstanding of the breastfeeding relationship. But when it comes to like actual things between mom and baby, I would say a mom's not getting a deep enough latch is probably the number one thing. Like having a breast, a lot of moms don't realize that like getting fluids in labor and delivery, for example, like if we run a liter of fluid in before an epidural, that third spaces, and often at third spaces to the breast. That can make it really hard for a baby to latch and actually delay colostrum and milk being able to move. So we have moms who have like poor latch because we fluid overloaded them in labor and delivery, not realizing that we shouldn't have done that. Or like maybe a mom gets, I don't know about your guys' hospitals, but a lot of times our hospital, if they wanted to run PIT after to help they run PIT on everyone afterwards to help the uterus contract. We really should be doing like an IM injection of PIT and not a liter of fluid, because that liter of fluid actually screws her for breastfeeding that next day because of the third spacing and the delay that it will put in her colostrum and her milk, like being able to move. So those like latching ends up being a challenge often if we have done a vacuum delivery, forceps delivery, cesarean. If we've pulled baby out at all, then we can have like misalignments and the baby won't open their jaw wide enough. They won't get a deep enough latch. So it's latch, and it's usually connected to some intervention that was done. And then the mom is struggling because her breasts are too full. Her nipple is now kind of flat. The baby can't open its mouth very wide. They can't get a good latch. And then, feel discouraged and all of that. So trying to decrease interventions on the front end can really set women up for success. And then making sure they know who to get help from on the back end. That's kind of, I feel like as a nurse in the hospital, kind of the best you can do when you've got them for 24 hours. You're going to want them skin to skin, and then make sure they know who to go to when they need help at home, because we can't fix it all on that first day. And statistically, about 50% of babies will not latch well in the first 12 hours just because birth is hard. So even if we do all the right things, 50% of babies aren't going to get a good latch right away. So understanding that too, like you might not get a great latch while you're here for this 24 hours, but this is who you're going to call the minute you're home, or this is what it should look like, or, here's a video, here's a resource for when you're home. Yeah.
Sarah had a good question in here about tongue tie. She said she had a patient who said that she had a hard time breastfeeding because her child was tongue tied. Yes. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah. So tongue ties, there's actually a couple different kinds of tongue ties. The easiest way I like to describe a tongue tie is I want you to imagine my body as a mouth. See my legs. Imagine my body's mouth, and this is the tongue. Okay. The tongue needs to be able to go out, and it needs to be able to undulate like this to move milk. That makes you sad. Why are you sad? And so a tongue tie, an anterior tongue tie that's easy to see, means the front of the tongue is actually tied to the bottom of the mouth. The back of the tongue can move, but the front is kind of stuck. You can see that very easily. A baby cries and it looks like a little heart shape because the sides of the tongue come up, but the middle is tied down. That's an anterior tongue tie, pretty easy to do a revision. They just clip that little frenulum area and the baby then gets like full range of motion with its tongue. The posterior tongue tie is much harder to see. I even feel like I'm not great at detecting them yet, and I've been doing this for years. Usually it's a dentist you have to refer to, but it's kind of like the back of the tongue is stuck. So the front of the tongue looks like it's fine. It can move up and down, but the back of the tongue is tied, so it actually can't move forward and hold the breast. So when babies have a posterior tie or an anterior tie, they rely on their gums on their lips for holding the breast, and that causes a ton of pain and they can't move milk very well. So yeah, it's very painful, very hard to move milk with a tongue tie, pretty much impossible depending on the severity of the tongue tie. And so a tongue tie revision does need to be done most of the time for either of those ties. Now a lip tie, where there's a little bit here, I think that's way over treated. People like are getting lip tie revisions over and over and over. I don't, all of my kids had lip ties. We nursed fine. I don't think that that's as big a deal, but the tongue, if you can't get a tongue that moves forward and undulates correctly, you can't move milk, and you get a baby who's not moving milk, not gaining, a mom who's not making milk because the milk's not leaving, so her body's not making any more, and it can be a big issue. But it's hard to see, and most physicians, I feel like pediatricians are not experts in tongue ties, so my referral is always to a dentist, a pediatric dentist, when I've got a mom with a tongue tie issue.
Bethany wants to know of some cute brands that sell maternity and breastfeeding friendly clothes.
Ooh.
Bethany, are you telling us something?
Absolutely not.
All right, just checking. Just
Not
checking.
yet. Not yet.
Got it.
Latched Mama is one of my favorite brands. They have a lot of, we sometimes don't think this through. Like, you know, you're going to need maternity clothes because your belly gets big and you can't fit in your other stuff. But for me, for example, I've had 4 babies. So I've been pregnant and needed maternity clothes for 6 months of each of those 4 pregnancies. So let's say 2 years total of the last 10 years. But I've needed nursing clothing every day for the last 10 years of my life. I've only think I've gone the most was like 3 days away from my kids when I was pregnant with her, and I didn't nurse for like 3 days in a row. So other than those 3 days, I've needed something I can breastfeed in every single day. And there are so many brands that make maternity/nursing. But I'll tell you what, right now, 5 months postpartum, I don't want a maternity shirt that's ruched down the side and accentuates the little bit of belly I still have just so I can nurse. So Latched Mama has a lot of just nursing clothes that I love because it's like I need things I can nurse in every day. My favorite bras are the ones from Pee in the Pod. They're super expensive, but once again, I've worn a nursing bra every day for the last 10 years, and I'm willing to invest in a bra that I'm going to use every day. You know, they last me 4 years. Maybe I've had some of my nursing bras, so well worth the investment. Target's got great nursing tank tops. I think the big thing is you have to be able to do the lashes with one hand. If you can't like do it with one hand, oh, this one's down. See, I didn't even notice, didn't even relatch it. If you can't do it with one hand though, you can't, it's not worth the money. So I've gotten a few things where you really needed 2 hands to relatch it, and I never wear it because one hand is holding a child. Why are you mad?
She's like, because I am not the center of attention here.
You're not talking to me.
Julia. Hi, sweet girl. Hi, Vivi. Hi, I see you.
Yeah. You're the best.
Keep growing.
I wish she had her teether. I could show you guys. She has a silicone boob that's a teether toy. How you know I'm obsessed. My kid has a boob teether. Huh, you have a boob teething toy.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yes, I hope it felt valuable. Thank you guys for being here and spending some of your Friday with me.
It was very valuable. I told Ashley before, like, I don't have kids and I've not been around them a lot. And so it was pretty informative. And especially the balloon thing, like the hows of that, very informative and helpful. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad. I really enjoyed getting a chance to talk about breastfeeding.
I could tell.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for putting this together.
Thanks, Chris, for coming.
It was
I'll see you
awesome.
guys.
Thank you guys so much.